Branchwater Jack, and we're sitting here having a conversation with my good friend, Papa Dave. Dave, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, let's see. Talk about myself personally.
Yeah.
Well, I was the vice president of a company in New Jersey, and then I moved to Florida and got involved with cowboy shooting and was a sales engineering and sheet metal company for the last 50 years. And then I started cowboy shooting, and I am 86 years old, and I still enjoy the cowboy shooting. It's a good sport to be in, to associate with people. You got to realize that when you go fishing, you're all by yourself or with another partner. But when you come to cowboy shooting, you got a lot of friends, and a lot of people to meet and talk to. And
So when did you start shooting SAS?
1977. So I've been shooting for 23 years.
87. 87. No, 77?
77.
77 would be 40 years.
97.
97. That works better.
97. I got the thing mixed up.
That's all right. So, and you started down in Florida.
Yes, correct.
And even though that you've been doing this since 1997, just me personally watching you over the years that I've known you, I've noticed that you've always looked still for ways to improve your game. Tell me about that process.
Well, the process is that as you keep shooting year after year after year, you want to get better and better. In order to get better and better, you have to look for ways that make you better and better. It's either by better guns, different type of ammunition, different type of powder charges and things like that. And I started out with 45s, and they're like shooting cannons. And of course, then I went to 32 20s.
We got lots of stew if y'all get hungry.
Okay. And I was then I went to 38s, and finally, and I shot all categories. I shot duelist, I shot gunfighter, and it just ended up being the traditional shooter, two-handed, and that's where I made my mark.
But SAS wasn't your first foray into shooting sports. You shot something else before you moved to SAS, right?
Oh, I shot a lot of trap shooting and skeet shooting when I was in my younger days. In fact, I used to run 100 straight and trap many times.
It's also been said by people that you're kind of an innovator in the game too. You've, for instance, marketed some parts for both the Bi-Cal shotgun.
Yeah, well, when I started, I used the Bi-Cal shotgun, and it wouldn't open. And me being in the sales and engineering for a sheet metal company, I had access to laser machinery, and I redesigned the Bi-Cal open lever, which kept it timed the barrel opening and cocking at a different time than the original levers. And I've been selling them for the last 20 years.
And even today, you're still making and marketing gun carts.
I marketed gun carts. Gun carts was a funny thing because four of us went to California to shoot. And I've shot from California to Maine. States, all states in between. Regionals. Anyway, get back to the levers and the gun carts. Going to California, I designed a gun cart. I made 5 of them. There was 4 of us going. To rent a gun cart in California was like $25 or $30. So I made 5 of them, and 4 of us took gun carts out in a duffel bag. My gun carts only weigh 17 pounds, and they put together with 8 screws, and they really worked well. And ever since then, everybody said, well, why don't you keep making them? And I do. I still make them.
Now, you have a couple world championships under your belt.
Well, I have the nationals and I have the world championship. I have 2 nationals and 2 world championships.
And before you won your first world championship, I know you were close a couple times, and you just couldn't quite get everything together to win that first world championship. Which do you remember more? The ones that you won or the ones that got away?
The ones that got away. The ones that got away because it was for things that I did wrong. I mean, I had my rifle lock up twice, and that cost me the championship on 2 separate occasions, 2 different years. And then one time I had a sliver of a piece of wood got under my SKB, under the trigger, and it wouldn't recycle the trigger to shoot the second barrel. And that cost me another match. So I've been out there like 6 times. I place and I'm in the top 5 normally, but winning was 2 times. I won twice, but everything worked. The shotguns worked, the bullets worked, and believe me, when you say you have to check your ammo, and I check every rifle ammo with 40 pounds of pressure to make sure that the bullet stays where it's supposed to be and that the crimps are right. And many times they'll collapse, and that's actually what happens in the rifle, and you lock up the rifle.
What's the first bit of advice that you give to a new shooter?
A new shooter, all I can say is, before you think you can outrun the timer, make sure you can hit the targets. My advice to everybody I've trained or talked to or mentored or whatever, I always say, hit the targets first. The time will come. You know, when the beep goes off, I know everybody goes crazy and they forget about hitting the targets or aiming. But the most important thing is, hit the targets. Don't get that 5-second penalty.
And you've always personally been a very consistent shooter. Where does that consistency come from?
Practice. Practice, practice, practice. Just like any other sport, this sport takes a lot of practice. I probably shoot 100 to 200 rounds a week, and then 100 rounds at a match. So sometimes in a month I might shoot 1,000 rounds. But it's just like any other sport, you have to practice. And me and a friend of mine, I can mention this, Sheriff Frank Canton, one year we went to 52 matches in a year. And practice. And it takes a lot to keep it up.
So
Especially as you get older, you get, right now, and when I mentor some people that I even tried to help or teach or train, they actually now beat me, which is great. I mean, I think that's the best thing going, that the people that you know and help, and they come right along, and before you know it, they're beating you.
And, you know, in the 25 or so years that you've been doing this, SAS has seen a lot of changes just in the game itself. Compare today's game to what it was when you started.
Today's game is a lot faster game than it was years ago. Years ago, they had smaller targets. They had targets further away. They did a lot with, what would you call them, like bow and arrows and dynamite, and they had props. They had a lot of props that you had to play with and move around and things like that. As far as I'm concerned, that's not part of shooting. Shooting is shoot the guns. You know, moving a prop from here to there is not part of the game. The game is shooting.
What keeps you coming back to the range?
People. I have a lot of friends in SAS, and you make a lot of friends in SAS. And it it keeps me busy at doing the practice, doing the reloads. I mean, it's like a constant thing. It's a busy hobby, which really keeps you busy. And I keep coming back because I like what I'm doing. I like shooting. I've never shot a pistol in my life. Most of my shooting was in trap and skeet shooting. And I, just picked up the pistols and away I went and just kept going from there.
This has been a discussion with Papa Dave. I'd like to thank you for your time, and hope to see you again on the firing line.
Well, Lord willing, I'll keep shooting.
All right, go ahead.
Okay, one of the highlights of my shooting career, there was 4 of us that went to California. We went there dressed like cowboys, like the OK Corral. And in the airports, we had more people talk to us about what was going on and how sharp we looked as cowboys. And even when we opened up our cases with all our guns and things like that, the security people came over and they thought these guns were just beautiful guns and things like that. And of course, this was a while back and we didn't have all this problems with terrorists and things like that. That was my biggest time. In fact, 2 weeks later, I sent my granddaughter back to Texas because she spent the summer with me. And we went to the same airport, and the same person that was behind the counter saw me, and she said, "Oh, you're Papa Dave. You came through here a couple of weeks ago." And it was just made my day that she remembered me for all the people that went through the airport. Because we were all dressed up in top hats and big hats and frock coats.